Hey kids, it's Mr. Flyer here, hope you're well. You find me here on a beautiful sunny day at Barnstormer in Maidenhead, where today I'm going to be riding this beast. This is the BMW F750GS, so if you're interested in this motorcycle, stick around and stay tuned. So the F750GS there, what's that all about? Well, first thing, it's a bit confusing the way that BMW label up their bikes or give them model numbers, because this is a very similar bike to the F850GS, a bike I rode 3 months or so ago, but this is the more on-road focused version. So despite it being called an F750, it's still got the 850cc engine, or 800, we'll go through the specs a bit later. It's basically got the same frame, same engine as the F850, but as I say, this is more on-road focused, so it's got things like cast wheels rather than spokes. It's got a little less ride height, a little less suspension travel, and is basically more, as I say, focused for on-road use. It's a bit more accessible than the F850. It's got a little less weight as well, something like 5 kilograms saved on the weight. Not a lot, but it all makes a difference. And it sits a little bit lower as well, I guess because of that reduced suspension travel. So if you're of shorter stature, then this is probably the one to go for. I have to say, when I jumped on just now, it feels lovely height wise for me. I'm 5'8" with a 32-inch inseam, and I can completely flat foot this bike, so it feels lovely in that respect. So the engine on here is a parallel twin, and it's beautifully smooth, coming as I do of course from my R1200GS. That's one of the things you notice, that the delivery of the power on this is just lovely. It's a very comfortable bike anyway. The way you sit on it is exactly the same as the big GS, the 1200. They've basically replicated, I think, the hand bum feet position, as it were, that triangle. It feels completely familiar to me to sit on. But what it is lacking is that rumble you get with the Boxer engine. Instead, you've got this beautifully smooth power delivery, which I really like, I have to say. Now, when you consider the full fat big GS, now of course in 1250 guys, once you get that specced up, you're looking at something like 18 grand for one of them. And it does make you question, you know, why you'd need to spend that when you can have something like this that feels just the same, goes, to my mind, just as well. We'll find out in a minute when I get to a faster road. And you can spec up almost as well as the big GS. I mean, this one I'm riding is the sport version, and it's got all the extras you're going to want, things like, you know, heated grips, fancy ABS, lean angle ABS, lean angle traction control, all the riding modes, the adjustable suspension, etc. The only thing this is missing over the spec'd up big GS would be the keyless ignition, and frankly I'm not a massive fan of that as well. I mean, it's alright, but it ain't going to keep me awake if I haven't got keyless ignition. So if value for money is important to you, and who isn't it, then this is one well worth considering if you're in the market for an adventure style type bike. Sounds lovely as well, this engine's got a really nice low rumble to it with the standard exhaust on. The other thing, of course, you notice when you jump on the machine is it's fitted with BMW's excellent TFT screen. This screen on here is absolutely lovely. It's a thing of beauty. I've been lucky enough to ride lots of bikes with TFT screens now, and I'm not just saying it, but I think the BMW one is the best of the bunch. And this one is exactly the same as the one that's fitted on the R1200GS. Doesn't appear to be lacking anything. It's really clear. It's a lovely screen. Also, this is fitted with the mounting readiness for the Nav 6 as well, which I would definitely recommend you buy if you go for one of these. The way that BMW do the integration of the sat-nav is excellent on this bike, by the little whiz wheel here. Okay, let's get on a bit of faster road then. See how she is in terms of weather and wind protection, because I must admit I am a bit sceptical about this, in quotes, screen on the bike, which doesn't look too good, I don't think, and it just looks to me to be too small to be very effective. So let's just wind her up a bit down here. If this Passat would get out of the way. Come on, sir. Thank you. Yeah, so straight away, once you're up to 70 miles an hour on the dual carriageway, I'm absolutely blasted by wind. As you would expect, it's effectively a naked bike. No wind on my lower torso. I hope you can hear me okay, because the bodywork protects you nicely there. But from sort of just below the shoulders up, I'm in full wind blast here, and a 78 mile an hour wind blast. Definitely want a bigger screen on here. It's not dirty air that's getting me, it's still air, it's not turbulent. But for long runs on motorways, that would be a bit of a workout for your neck muscles. But this engine is a real peach. Under no stress whatsoever. Cruising along on the motorway, no problem on this bike at all. Loads of power to make overtakes as well. Alright, so much for faster roads. Let's go and check her out in town and see what she's like, maybe in amongst a bit of traffic. This bike is also fitted with BMW's Gear Assist Pro, or Shift Assist Pro, which is basically their up and down quick shifter. And on this particular engine it works really beautifully. I mean, here we go, down to second gear, smooth as you like. If you did that on one of the Boxer engine bikes, it would be a bit more clunky. Brakes seem to work really well. Seating position, as I've already said, is really, really nice. Nice and comfortable, very familiar feeling seating position to me, coming from my big GS. Seat's nice and comfy. What I would say though is when you brake, you do slide around a bit on the seat. It's got a the finish on the seat is a little bit slippery for my textiles that I'm wearing. Obviously it depends what kit you're wearing, but I am finding as I give it some beans and as I brake, I'm sliding around a bit on the seat. Now this particular model that I'm riding, as I say, is the 750GS Sport, which is the one that comes with all the extras you're likely to want, including the fancy electronic suspension. I've got this set in dynamic mode at the moment, suspension setting that is, and that actually changes the suspension for you depending on the sort of riding that you're doing. Very clever stuff. And just poodling along here in traffic at slow speeds as I'm approaching town, it really is a plush ride. You've got quite a lofty riding position here. You've got a good view over other traffic, so when you're in town you can kind of work out how you're going to weave yourself through. In terms of filtering and so on, well, it is a heavy old machine, but it doesn't feel that wide, and because the seat height is quite friendly, you can get your feet down and you don't feel too precarious when you're dealing with traffic like this. What a stunning day to be out for a ride. I'm missing summer, but when it's like this, not too bad at all. I can smell that scooter in front, it smells great. So as I've alluded to, of course, BMW do the usual thing where you can buy the basic bike and it seems like a reasonable price, and I'll go through the costs in a minute when we go through the spec. But by the time you've added all the bits you're going to want, like, you know, heated grips that this one's got, and the fancy suspension, and lean angle sensitive ABS, etc, etc, you start to add the cost up. So you've got to bear that in mind when you consider the cost of the machine, that the bits that you want are likely to cost you more. It's busy in downtown Marlow today. Well, to be honest, it usually is. Interesting, just riding along here slowly, just notice a little bit of jerkiness on the throttle there. Generally speaking, she's pretty smooth. Not getting it now. It's just as I was slowing down there, there's a little bit of jerkiness, but now look, I'm just going slowly. The feeling feels pretty good actually. Standing up on the bike, she's balanced and lovely, so you can stretch your legs. What a beautiful scene down here today. Gosh, chose a good day to do this. Yeah, nice natural positions for standing up. Not that this is the off-road bike, as I say, but it's nice to stretch your legs occasionally, isn't it? Right, let's get out of the way of this traffic. Feels very eager when you wind her on. It actually feels a lot faster than my 1200GS. The power band is such that it's obviously set a little bit lower down, which I would argue is more useful. Tips into the corners, lovely, nice balanced feel about the bike. Yeah, handling is top notch. Really confidence inspiring as well. You can really lean her over. Oh, van. Yeah, you can really chuck this bike around. Sounds great as well. Yeah, a lot of fun. Just that wind blast that's the issue. Well, I have to say I'm quite smitten by the F750GS. It really is a lovely bike to ride. It's confidence inspiring. It's nice and smooth, great engine, sounds good. What I need to do is take you to one of my favourite spots, the airfield here up at White Waltham, where there's a decent car park. I'll park up and I'll show you around the bike and talk you through the spec. Oh, here we are. What a beautiful day to go flying. Should have thought of that. Ooh, chipmunk, nice. Right, let's park her up over here then. Nice and easy to find neutral. Side stand's easy to get hold of. There we go. Alrighty. Here we are. So here she is then. The BMW F750, think about it then, F750GS. And yeah, it looks like a nice bike, really nice to ride. I guess the only thing that I really don't like about the looks is this little screen. As I mentioned before, it's completely ineffective. I don't even know why they bother. I mean, I would immediately have to replace that with something a bit more substantial, you know, like you would get on the 1200GS. I think the bike would look better that way and would look more like its big brother. Other than that, I think it looks pretty good. Alright, let's get my phone out then, and I'll talk you through the spec in the usual way. Okay, here we go then, the F750GS. Let's start off with the engine then, which is actually 853cc and a parallel twin. Controversially, it's actually sourced from China. I say controversially because some people get very upset about that. I personally don't have any issue with that whatsoever, as long as it's built to BMW specs, and I don't care where it's made, and their quality control, of course. And I have to say, it rides really nicely. It's a lovely little engine. So puts out 76 brake horsepower at 7,500 RPM. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but it feels like a lot more than that. It has to be said. As I say, it feels as if it's got more go than my R1200GS. 61.3 foot-pounds of torque at 6,000 RPM. Brakes wise, they work really well. On the front we've got 305mm dual discs with Brembo 2-pot calipers, and as I say, it's got the lean angle sensitive ABS on this particular one. At the back, let's come and have a look at the brakes here. We've got 265 millimeter discs with a single pot baby Brembo on that one as well. Suspension wise, on the front it's got 41mm upside down forks. No adjustment on them. I think that's one of the differences between this and the F850GS as well. I think that has adjustable suspension. Seat height on this, as standard, it's 815mm. This is the standard seat. I'm 5'8" and I can flat foot it. Very comfortable, and the good news is you can buy an even lower seat, taking it down to 770, or if you're a toolie, you can get an 830mm seat for it. So great deal of flexibility on seat height, so BMW are listening there, so that's great news. Weight wise, 224 kilograms wet, which is about 5 kilograms less than its brother, the 850. Tank capacity here holds 15 litres, which sounds about average, so that's fine. And as I say, you can spec up all sorts of things on this bike, including multiple rider modes, the TFT screen of course, dynamic ESA, cornering ABS and traction control as I mentioned. If you get the basic bike, it's 7,950, but don't be fooled. As I say, that sounds like a really good value price, isn't it, for a bike of this spec? But you would need to spec it up if you want to get this version, which is the Sport. This is 9,200 on the road, but still, nonetheless, given the amount of tech you get for 9,200, less than 10 grand, all you're missing over this and say a BMW R1200GS in TE spec, all you're missing is keyless ignition. So I think that is a pretty good price for one of these. Okie dokie, I think that's pretty much it for the walk around. Let me just show you some of the close-up detail that I can't show you when I'm riding it. So switchgear, standard BMW stuff. This one's got the heated grips, and over here you see the control for the functions on the TFT, as well as the whiz wheel for the sat-nav, and the controls for the cruise control and the suspension settings. Very nice indeed, all feels usual BMW quality, and it looks nicely made. There's that standard exhaust, sounds really nice. Nice bit of kit. Alright then, let's jump back on and ride us some more. Right, nice and easy to get off the side stand. Let's watch that TFT do its thing when we start her up. I love that, I could watch that all day. Brilliant. And she sounds great when you start her up. Look at this car just come here and park right there. What a prize. Anyway, alrighty, let's move out of here. Although she is quite a heavy bike at 243 kilograms, as I say, it doesn't feel heavy at all once you're on her and she's moving. I mean, all bikes lose their weight once they're moving, but it doesn't feel ponderous when you slow down at junctions and stuff. I wouldn't have guessed it was that weight, put it that way. Must just take this opportunity to thank the guys at Barnstormer in Maidenhead for letting me ride a bike once again. Thanks to Aldo and the chaps there. If you've never been down to Barnstormer, then do check them out. They've got every BMW you can possibly think of. Demo rides for most of them as well. And a great showroom, complete with free drinks and sometimes biscuits if you're lucky. So it's worth a bit of a ride out just for that. Brakes on here work a treat. As do the mirrors, by the way. I haven't mentioned the mirrors. These are the standard mirrors on here that you see on lots of BMWs. They're the same as on the big GS. No vibration and they work really well. A bit of a tunnel opportunity. Let's just give this a little try. Yeah, sounds really good. Really like this engine. It's got a lot of get up and go, much more than its brake horsepower figures would have you believe. Feels like the front wheel wants to lift actually. Okay, so there we have it. That's pretty much it for my first impressions review. I guess to summarise on what I think of the BMW F750GS, what are my thoughts? Well, you will have noticed I like this bike very much indeed. The engine is beautiful, as I just mentioned. It's really comfortable. It's laden with technology. Even if you buy the sport version, which this is, that has lots of these extra bits, you're still looking under 10 grand for this bike. I'd say do not let the fact that the engine is Chinese built put you off at all. If you think that's you know, a black mark against BMW, well, I think again, because BMW are not going to let substandard bits of kit exit their factory. That just wouldn't even enter my brain as a bad point at all if I were buying one of these. I think go and check one of these out. If you think comparing this against things like the Triumph Tiger 800, another bike that I love, but I have to say for a similar price I would definitely have this over the Tiger 800 all day long. I think replace that front screen with a taller version. If BMW don't already make one, there'll definitely be some aftermarket options to do so. And you'd have a very nice looking bike. Over and above the Tiger you've got somewhat more electronics, I think. You've got this beautiful up and down quick shifter that works really well, and on top of that you've got a much better, in my view, TFT display than the Triumph one. And the engine feels a lot more peppy as well. Even though I love the triple on the Tiger, I think this one's got it. So there we are. I hope that's been of some interest to you. This is just my first impressions review of the bike, of course. Go and ride one yourself if you're interested, but I think you're going to like it. And if this is the first time you've been to my channel, thanks very much for sticking to the end of the review. I don't just do bike reviews, but I do all sorts of things. I do trips and tours, I do things in the garage, I do kit reviews, you name it. If it's to do with motorcycling, I try and cover it here on the Missenden Flyer. It'd be great to have you along. Hit that subscribe button, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Until then, this has been the Missenden Flyer. Cheerio.